Nobody comes to insurance agency ownership and operation the same way. I think that's the beauty of the industry. And I think in this latest edition of the Blueprint podcast, a discussion with Andrew Shlaffler from ACO Insurance kind of epitomizes that. When I think of Andrew and I think of this conversation, I think about discipline. It takes discipline to be a startup. It takes discipline to be a college wrestler. It takes discipline to set service standards in place, and it takes discipline to scale and grow faster than most of the industry. And yet, I think what's cool about this episode is there's a complete realization that without humans, it doesn't matter. And so there's so much conversation these days about technology, about APIs and AI. And hey, I'm here for it. There's nobody more interested in that than me. But it's nice to hear that the human side of it, the importance of building a team and relationship to be supplemented or supported by technology is a refreshing conversation to have. So if you've ever found yourself kind of conflicted between the human side, the empathy side of the business, and the need for technology and integration, then you're going to love this conversation with Andrew. It's a compelling story of how one can think about scaling an agency with just the right amount of humanness and just the right amount of AI, API, and technologies. Andrew, it's good to see you again. How are things?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's good to be here. It's good to see
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, it's summer in Cleveland, so it's the best time of year to be doing anything. We get a lot of jokes in Cleveland about that, but I'm going to argue there's no better place in the world than Cleveland, Ohio
In
in the summer.
Cleveland,
If you can't
and
have if you're not happy in Cleveland in the summer, then you've got a problem.
you got a problem. I like it.
Yeah.
I've been up there way back when I was wrestling, and they do a senior national tournament in Cleveland, Ohio. So I had a chance to get up there, and yeah, I can see why. I mean, it's beautiful and good weather. Get near the water. So
Yeah, it's an interesting part of your story. We're going to get into that on this podcast. But four times a Letterman and University of Maryland wrestling team, is that right?
yeah, yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, love hate relationship, but it was good. You looking back, it was a
Well,
good time.
I think for our listeners, I want to put that out there to start because when you learn kind of what Andrew's doing and kind of how he's doing it, there's a lot of intentionality. And I never wrestled in high school, but the wrestlers had to be the most disciplined people, whether it was Friday night at a party or whether it
Yeah.
was like the middle of the summer, there was always this concern about control or maintenance or, whatever. And I think it shows up in a lot of what you do. Is that true? Or am I overthinking it?
For me, it's true. I think some wrestlers don't convert well to the professional world. They either don't want to do it or they can't pull that focus and discipline in other things. For me, I was always more analytical, so it was harder for me on the mat to just turn off my brain and focus, be in the moment. And there's a lot of urgency, like there's always a point in that match. You got 10 seconds left. You can't freak out. You can't start thinking. You need to be in the moment. So that was hard for me in wrestling. I think it served me well in my professional career because what we do is a bit of performance. You're in the moment when you present, when you're doing calls, and then you have a lot of planning and strategy. So I think for me, it's really helped me kind of bring both of those skill sets, to the table. So, but yeah, wrestling was good for me. I mean, it kept discipline. I think when you do something that hard, whatever it is, you can always fall back on it and go, all right, what am I dealing with now? And is it really that bad? Have I done something more difficult? The answer is yes, often. So for me, I'm like, yeah, just put my head down and grind, try and do it smart, but
I,
grind.
I love that because, well, let's get into that because I think you've done some pretty hard stuff. So Andrew Schaffler from ACO Insurance, right? And where are you located?
We're based out of Tysons, Virginia. We're licensed in about 18 states right now. So we are, more national, but I'd say the bulk of our business is Virginia, DC, and Maryland.
Okay, yeah. So take me back. I never talked to anyone or very few people who dreamed about getting insurance. So take us back to kind of your insurance experience, just so I like for our listeners to know where you're coming from, so that
Mhm.
when we get to where you're at now, there's some context there. So talk a little bit about your insurance background.
Sure. So I got into the business at 24. I got hired by Federated Insurance and then went to their 10-month training program out in Owatonna, Minnesota.
Legendary.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great experience. At the time, I was living in my parents' basement and I was a graphic designer. And wasn't making good money, didn't really like it as a profession. I really liked it, but not as a profession. So I'm like, what do I have to lose? Right. So I made more money on salary, getting, educated, what I felt like was like a master's in insurance. And then I got a territory in Lynchburg, Virginia, was there for about 3 years. I did well, but it's a different model, and we can get into it if you want, but I kind of reached a point where I wanted to be a consultant, felt like I couldn't truly be an independent consultant there. So I started exploring independent models and stumbled on Brown and Brown, and thought I wanted to stay closer to Richmond. They didn't have an opening, so I moved to the Manassas, Northern Virginia office. Was there a little under 4 years, learned a ton, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. For me, at the time, I got to a point where I'm like, I really want to be a niche specialist. I thought I wanted to be a true niche specialist, or at least see what that looked like, really learn from someone, a mentor. And then I got an opportunity at USI to join their condominium practice, which had been really established in the 1980s when they started building the condos. And then through various like acquisitions, they ended up being USI, but it was an independent agency, local independent for a while. Learned under two really talented, very smart people, and stay there for 2 years. And then really that's when I got that itch of I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I
Yep.
think the most enjoyable thing about our job is talking to owners, meeting with owners. I love the story. Um, and I felt like I had that desire to get the freedom, the ultimate freedom in my mind. And I decided to make the jump. So I was 34. I had money saved. I felt like I was really equipped from a knowledge standpoint to compete in the middle market space. So I felt like everything kind of aligned. Met my wife at the time. We were dating, and she was like, "Yeah, do you know how to do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know how to do it." She's like, "Why aren't you doing it?" I'm like, "All right, like let's do it." So I remember we were on vacation in Colorado, and she went away on a trip. And then that week I was by myself and filed the LLC, got it going, and then I left USI July the 8th. And then I think we got our first appointment in September of that year. And, the rest is history. So, and that's kind of where we're at now. So fast forward a little over 7 years, and we've got a team of 14. We do personalized commercial. And then I've got a joint venture with an employee benefits uh, company and a buddy of mine at Brown and Brown. So we're trying to really build out the three silos right now, and maybe at some point talking to a financial wealth advisor and kind of building out all four models. But
Well,
for
I
this,
know I know why I like you. So I was 36 when I started my agency, and I remember making that same call to my wife. And I remember the turn on the road when there was this long pause, and she just asked if, "Do you think we can do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we can do it." And from
yeah,
there, the hard part of the movie starts, right?
yeah, for sure. But it was a really, looking back, it's been a blur. And I think by design, that my wrestling mentality, it's like you're in preseason, you're building your condition. It's terrible, but you just put your head down and you do it. And then before you know it, you're in great condition, and you forget about getting there and what it took to get there. And I think we're in a good spot with the conditioning, the foundational structures of the company. And now I think we're moving into a pretty interesting, that next step of really trying to scale it more than we have now.
Yeah, so it's interesting because Federated, Brown and Brown, USI, all of those large organizations that you walk into, all of the scale was built 100 years before we were born. So you walk into these kind of fully functioning, forming entities that are flying. Now you pull out of that, and you've got to do it all yourself. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you wrestle or play football or you jump out of airplanes. Like, that is full contact sports right there. And so walk me through kind of those first couple of years and some of the challenges that you faced, or what are the big things that jump out?
I think, and it's okay to underestimate things. I think there is value in really not knowing and just going in full bore and burn the ships, and you're doing it. And I did that, but we did start organic, $0. It was just me in a basement, and I just kept reminding myself, just keep doing what you've done your entire career, and everything else will fall into place. You just got to be willing to do it, right? Willing to constantly solve problems. No one's going to do it for you. You have to get good at the due diligence, whether it's software, HR, IT, right? And building these infrastructures. And I've made plenty of mistakes, where you get a voice over IP system for your phones. It's terrible. You're like, well, we need a good phone system. So we went through 3 or 4 companies and finally settled on one. So I think for me, it was looking back, it was easy to sell. Selling is hard, but I did have prior relationships, just kept doing what I was doing, and it was a pretty proven process. You try and get 100 calls, cold calls a week at the time that I was working, 1 to 2 appointments a week. I knew most of what I was going after was 5,000 revenue or greater. I wanted to service it. I was going to service everything. And then I knew going in around month 10, 11, I really need to look to hire that first CSR, whatever you want to call it, so that I could keep the sales going and get enough momentum where I could fund it with my own dollars, because I didn't want to take private equity, didn't want to get funding, dilute my ownership. So I got very lucky. I was part of an aggregator, Iroquois, which is now Iron Peak. They got me in touch with a guy. It was perfect timing. He was trying to get back in the industry. He had 15, 16 years of experience, and he was a rock star and just never complained. Very methodical, super analytical, which aligns well with my skill set and personality. And he was like the go-to guy for everything, and it allowed me to keep scaling. So I got him about 12 months in, and that's scary because you're
Yeah.
like, I finally could pay my mortgage, and I don't know, maybe we had 100 to 125 booked in the first 12 months, so it was not killing it, but good enough,
Yeah.
and
You're
I'm like,
alive. You're making it. Yeah.
alive. We're going to roll that in. And I hired him at 75. So you're like, boom, 75. Like I'm back to, zero. But it was just believing in the plan, believing in scaling. I don't want to own a job. I want to own a business. So I've kept that attitude, always trying to reinvest the dollars. Everything will come with time. And I know you talked about, we've got to make sure we take care of the ownership too. But, but that served me well. And I've had some good people that I reached out to, and one guy worked at Federated. He inherited his dad's business, took it over, and then just blew it up. And he was more employee benefits, life insurance, and now he's done some acquisitions. But the first thing he told me is like, don't hold the money, spend the money and hire quick. And I luckily I listened to him. He's a very smart guy, and it worked out, and that allowed us to keep that momentum. And then I think I wrote maybe 150 to 200,000 year over year for 4 years, and then next thing you know, then I'm building out a personal lines team. And so the hardest part of that was, I think the easiest part was selling. The hardest part was understanding how to, I think, put the processes in place. Formal processes from nothing. It was like, what kind of quality control do we want? What service plan do we want to deliver to clients? What
Well,
clients are going to
especially
value it? What size do you want to start doing, more for this group, less for this group? Um, and what
especially for someone
CRM
who's
you
comfortable
need.
at sales. I mean, like, coming from your background, sales, I can put 125, 150,000 revenue on, no problem. Okay, you're wrestling at your weight class there, right? It's like, okay, I can do this. But when you start going up or down in weight, it's like all of a sudden, it's like this requires a completely different skill set. And I think that's one of the challenges that startups really face is you have to get quickly get very good at different masteries or weight divisions that you don't normally fight at.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
that challenge can often overwhelm people. So it's the ones like you that make it through.
It was very overwhelming. I mean, there were times, I mean, I never broke down, but it was, I mean,
I did.
there were times when it was, it was tough. You're like, and your wife goes to bed and you're just sitting there like, I've got 200 emails I got to rip through. And I just kept believing like, I'm going to keep solving problems. I'm going to keep solving problems. And, it is interesting because you and I talked initially. There are ceilings, and you really feel the ceiling. There are ceilings at like every level. That first ceiling when you hire someone, now you got to get payroll. Now you got to talk benefits. You have a little bit more regulatory focus that you got to look at depending on your state. And then once you solve the problem, you're like, I might as well hire another 10 people because I solved it, right? So it's like it's interesting. There's certain barriers to break through, but it's definitely overwhelming. And for anyone trying to do it, I just think. Um, they just have to be willing. As a salesperson, there is a certain level of, you're going to have to be willing to do the paperwork. You're going to have to be willing to, you're always going to feel like you're pulled in a million different directions, I think, trying to scale the business. So staying disciplined to like, I have to do my calls on these days, I'm going to vet an IT company on these days, right? Time blocking. And I could get better at that, but it was a lot to deal with. We had a cyber breach within the first year. I mean,
Good. Yeah,
dealing with the claim.
just what you wanted.
I mean, it was horrible. I just remember thinking I changed my password. Like, I still have it. It's never surrender. I'm like, it's not happening. So, like, these are the little things you just bake into your DNA, and you're like, I'm not gonna let this break me. But there were times when if you're gonna self-insure a $30,000 claim, you're like, I have 100,000 in revenue coming in, and I'm paying somebody 25,000. Hopefully I got some coverage. So even looking at your own insurance, it's like the last thing I want to do is look at our own insurance, looking at everybody else's. But
Yeah, no, it's 26 years as an independent agent. When I started Be Atomic, the first thing I did is hired an independent agent. I've never done my own insurance for that reason. So
yeah,
you talked about like um, discipline and intentionality and all those things that it takes to get there. And I love talk to me about ACO. Why ACO? What does that mean to you? And I think that's the perfect pivot into what you guys do different or special. How did that come about?
I think I got to see a lot of different models through my career. I was at Federated. I think they're the largest mutual direct insurance brokerage, where I was an employee of Federated.
Yeah,
We had niche businesses that we focused on, controlled territories. They were really heavy in association partnerships. And that was a good, they were very disciplined with their sales approach. And then Brown on Brown was kind of the Wild West when I went there. They were still very decentralized. You're kind of only as good as the local office you're in. There wasn't a mentor for me from a P&C standpoint that really was just a proven rock star. So a lot of that learning curve was I had to learn how to market, how to create the narrative. How are you different and better as a broker? I have a broker. I was like, oh, because at Federer, I could just walk in and like, we have
right.
an exclusive option. No one
I'm
else
the
can
only guy here that could do this for you. Yeah, yeah,
give me a shot.
yeah.
So that was a learning curve, and it started compounding. And then, with USI, I got to see the super niche specialists. So I think with our model, what I am trying to do, and we're trying to get better every day, but it's taking the best aspects of all of those companies and then trying to remove the downside. For me, with my personality, the downside was you don't have book of business equity. You have no skin in the game as a producer. That was a problem. It doesn't motivate me as, let's say, ego aside. Let's say I'm a B plus or an A minus sales guy or something. But for me, I wanted skin in the game. Um, the commission of 40 new, 20 renewal, 25 renewal for me didn't do it. I need to be rewarded to take care of my clients just as much as I'm hunting for new business. So we restructured it here where you get 40 new, 40 renewal. Um, I just tried to reverse engineer, and I think we talked about it before, is why I left and the things that I felt like I was lacking from just a total benefits package there, and then try and create it here.
Sure.
And I
Yeah.
think we've done a pretty good job of it. Now the next step is, put it to the test is, can I actually get skilled and talented producers right at that point in their career where they know they can sell, they've got some knowledge, but they want to look for a home that they can grow and be in and have skin in the game and have management opportunities. Do they want to help be a mentor and develop other sales folks? And so I'm a big believer in like having a structure, but then tailoring it around people's desires and what they want at their, because if you're asking someone to commit 20 or 30 years of their life, it's a long ride. And for me, I get bored quick. And I think if other people have a similar personality, is how do you keep challenging them in a fun and interesting way, week in and week out, because it's a grind. So that's the approach from a team standpoint that I've built out. And then client facing is accomplishing client objectives is the acronym ACO, accomplishing client objectives. And what I really wanted to hit on there was we would go into meetings a lot from like the corporate side, and we would say, you should care about this process, and you would name it and brand it. And companies of your size are concerned with these three things. Here's a claims example. Here's a financial impact. Here's the issue we often find the solution. And that was very formulaic, which is good. But I wanted to know what they care about first before vomiting on them about these preconceived notions that we often find in their industry for companies of their size and scope and all that. So everything I'm trying to do now is, we might care about that here at ACO. We might see this as an issue, but do you agree? Let me give you a claims example. Does that resonate? Is that an issue in your mind? And if the answer is no, I'm not going to keep drilling on that. I'm going to make a note. I'm going to move on. But we want to focus on where their areas of heartburn is. And I felt like from a client facing standpoint, that was often overlooked. It was less relationship building, getting to know their operations, getting to know their true risk profile. It was a lot of assumptions going in. And I didn't really like that. I don't think people should care about the name of your process. They should care about the problems it solves, and getting back to really how are they going to use it, and what value does it bring. And so that's kind of, hopefully that makes a little
No,
sense. It's a
it
little
does. It's
vague,
an
but
interesting perspective. You see, and I'm a, I've been in the industry for 26 years, and most of us, most insurance agencies take on the persona of the founder, and a lot of them take on the actual name of the founder, right? And so thus we have Brown and Brown, whoever they were, right? And so we tend to do that. I thought it really, your story differs. It almost splits seismically right there, because you put the client first. You're like, hey, the name of our agency is Accomplished Client Objectives. It's like, so
yeah,
now instead of the persona being the attraction, it's like, no, you're the attraction, you're the rock star, and we're here to carry your guitars. And so how does that then change? And I think that's just I think that goes to then a person who would do that is the person who would build the what you guys call the infinity process, which, as far as I can tell, is one of the most thorough, expertise driven, knowledge based processes for servicing and handling insurance that I've seen. And not that you have to X and O it out, but is it fair to say that that part of your DNA is the most labor intensive, the most one of the most valuable, but also one of the hardest to be able to scale and run, to be able to keep that
yeah,
level? Yeah.
yeah. I think it is hard, and I think we're learning. You have to. I think it gets back into the customization of I might want to do that for every client. Can I do it? And do they actually want us to do it? So I think what I'm realizing is maybe 10% of our clients are really going to want that level of hands on service. They want action plans throughout the year, quarterly claims reviews if they need it, ongoing risk management, safety services. Um, what we tend to do more of, the infinity concept is just it's creating an action plan that is repeatable, measurable, and constantly improving, and doing that year over year as long as the partnership's in place. And
Right. Yeah.
that's ultimately the goal that I think most agencies want to do. But the execution, we're not perfect on it. And part of it is, the capacity that when I grew my book, now I'm trying to manage the book, and I've gotten away from doing that consistently. And those are the things that I want to slowly get back to, or hire people to do it more. But it is hard to scale because you actually have to know what you're talking about. So when you bring in new folks, it's like, all right, well, if you really want to run that service model, you really do have to be able to rip apart policies, do analysis. You have to know the business, you have to know the risks, emerging trends, and things of that nature. So that's really that next, I think, iteration. But conceptually, that's where we want to be. It's like the archetype that we're always striving for. Um, and it works as far as the new business platform. Like the first meeting is phase one, second meeting phase two, third meeting phase three, and then you're already in the infinity process. It's just once you onboard, then we monitor, we measure, we repeat, we improve.
Yeah, and
Uh,
if anybody's interested in that, he's got it on his website, so you can go there and check it. And
yeah,
it's a good formula for how to approach service on that. So I mean, I think that's where what you're doing and how you view and kind of where the atomic converges, because part of our solution set says, hey, wait a second, in 2026, um, we can no longer expect people to deliver that level of service for which we've trained our customers to want, and simultaneously do all of the required processing on the backside. You have to separate at some point with technology service from processing. And unfortunately, our account managers, who we want to be doing these quality service driven, value driven processes, spend most, if not all of their time just doing insurance processes on that side of it. And so I think, that's our mission, and what we're trying to do with our platform is to be able to separate that, so that two things happen. One, those account managers get the time and the autonomy to be able to do those things that drive value, and they know what it is. And then two, the agency gets the lowest cost processing. I mean, having knowledge workers in 2026 typing keys and transferring data from system to system is not a sustainable model. And so I guess that's where, when for someone like you who's come from the biggest to absolute dead zero startup scratch, who's now scale it to a team of 14 and going, and you've got high standards for service. So you want your service people doing the relationship value expertise things. How do you look at, and how could other agents look at things like AI or autonomy or automations or workflows as a way to start trying to split those things away from our knowledge workers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm starting to, well, we talked about this a little bit, but I'm starting to do a deeper dive on AI platforms and services and well, I don't know if I can say the name, but
Well, you don't have to. I mean, you can or you don't have to, but it's up
yeah.
to you. But
So
like the
Humus
process, the
one,
principles are
that
the
I that yeah, yeah, and the one that we like is one. I started using Perplexity to input chord forms, and it does a pretty good job there, and that saves any commercial producer. I mean, in our team, I'm a big believer in producers handling the new business marketing because I think you learn the account. You're able to pick up on things that you might miss that, you can call them issues, hot buttons, the wedge approach, whatever, but picking up those cross referencing with the policy. If you're not involved in doing the supplemental and you don't know the business through and through, I think it impacts your ability to close the deal, to make the sale, to really highlight the issues and the solution. And I still do that as the owner, so I'm doing Accords for new business, and Perplexity work surprisingly well. And then Cumis does, we're just starting to get after it now, which is doing form reviews. So making sure expiring is in line with where do they line up? Where don't they line up? Did the carrier change the writing company? They didn't tell us, which happens all the time. Happened last week. It's infuriating. Um, Doing coverage analysis, it'll do coverage comparisons for you. So I look at it as if we pick the right platform that we can utilize and grow with, it will open up capacity for us to continue to hopefully make our service team better, uh, free up their time, hopefully train them up a little bit on knowledge too, because they might not necessarily look at all 10 items if they're reviewing an errors and emissions policy or something. They might, in their mind, know three or five of the big things, but the AI might pick out 10, and then they can go on the forum and read it and understand it. So I think it's an education opportunity too. And then it increases our capacity so we can bring in more deals, and keep the same team. I never want to bring it in at this point, to fire folks. I want to bring it in to increase our capacity and growth. And
Well,
that's
and
how,
I think that's the modern expectation for professional services organization going forward. Certainly to create value is going to be double digit growth with either a flat or declining population. And those people should be higher compensated. They should be more valuable. They should deliver speed to the clients, value to the client faster and better than they ever did before, because tools are taking away tasks that add no value
right.
to anybody.
Yeah.
And I think it's the I think that's going to be the expectation. I don't care if you're an insurance, an attorney, an accountant. There is no way we can measure success by square footage or head count in the 21st century. It's not sustainable from a financial standpoint.
Yeah. I agree. And then to your point, I think you alluded to this, but you look at the hourly rate of your staff and having them be knowledgeable and having expertise. You want them focusing on contract reviews, claims advocacy, things that really you should be paying them to do, not to your point,
Yeah.
processing. And it's painful when you're like, "What'd you do today?" And they have to cycle through 100 emails, and instead of really doing high touches, high expertise stuff, right? I mean, your hourly rate's being drained on this processing type of um, less challenging, less difficult tasks, right? But you still have to do them. You still have to figure out a way to do it. And yeah, the emails are just, I don't know if you guys get crushed with emails, but I mean, I probably get 250 to 300 a day, to the point where I hired an assistant who literally will go through all my emails take into a folder and, what do I need to look at today? What does Andrew need to handle? And then she forwards everything else to the
What
service
are we
team.
doing? What are we doing to each other? Right?
Crazy.
Crazy.
But
Well, and I think that's where, as you look at what the value proposition that you offer to your clients, increasingly, it's going to be your people. And I think, the human brain is amazing. It knows, retains, and understands things that I think is powerful. These tools are, and I believe they're powerful. We employ them in our platform, so I know that they're very powerful. But none of them have the context that a good, well-trained, caring, empathetic producer or account manager has. They know the policy, they know the carrier, they know the agency culture, they know about that customer, they know their hot points, they know their trigger points, they know the things that are good and bad, they know the names of their kids. And it's like all of that context data can come swirling in a moment when we choose a carrier or how we introduce ourselves or walk into it. And if you can subscribe to that, then that is the most valuable database you have, is the context awareness, the autonomy, and the training to act in the best interest of the customer. You've got that in your people. And so if you can scale that, your client relationships are untouchable. It's the other stuff we're asking them to do that just has to be put in its place. And I think I'm proud to see that the insurance industry is finally starting to think that way. I think carriers have a long way to go, but I'm glad agents are having that conversation.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think the carrier model still has, hey, I've got a portal and I've got an Accord form. You hire humans, you type it in, you structure my data, you do all that. Andrew, that's your problem. You go hire the humans, you staff the people, you get them benefits, you do that. I solved my problem. I've got a portal. I've got an Accord standard, right? And so in order for all of this to work, Mr. Carrier, is the independent agent still has to be alive in this process. And we're dealing with, crushing economics and global shifts on how we work. There has to be more back and forth. Now I'm preaching, but that's where this has to go for us all to win. Fair?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you look at the next 7 to 10 years of ACO, um, and if we can agree that it's 2, 3, 4, 10x of where it is today, do you agree that an organization can go through that and grow sales, grow revenue, all that, and flatline, or potentially even with retirement or with transition, decline in headcount? Or do you think that there's always going to be tethered together on some level?
I think it will be tethered together on some level unless there's some sort of, I guess, I don't ever want to have AI interacting directly with my clients.
Why?
So, because I believe philosophically in humans doing it. So that's just where I'm at, right? I believe in the human element. I think a lot of the folks I work with, they're blue collar. They, I think, will appreciate the human element. If that changes, though, and to your point, like if the customer no longer, if that's no longer a differentiation, then maybe I would consider doing something like that and changing my model. But I just think I would rather scale with people and have them be able to use AI as a tool and never have AI replace people, just philosophically. But I'm always rooting for people because I feel like you have to be when you're scaling the business, right? It's just so important to believe in people, hand it off, to delegate the work, to believe that they can get it done. And if they make a mistake, then it's a coaching opportunity to get better, right? And I think my team believes in me and they came on board for a reason. I want to enhance their life. I want to help them personally and professionally. And they made a commitment. So my commitment is to keep them, and to continue to grow. So everybody that comes on board, I look at it as, to answer your question directly, I think it will change where, let's say, every in commercial insurance, every million to 2 million in revenue, maybe you have to bring on three folks for servicing, at 60,000 to 80,000 in salary in our area, approximately. But I do think instead of doing three, maybe it's one. So for me, I think the metrics change a little bit, but I'm okay with, and maybe another agency might say, hey, I don't need to hire and I could rely on AI. I know there's AI that does cold calling. I've looked into that. I think it's pretty good. I just have, for me personally, And I've literally asked other owners, would you have a problem? Some of my clients, would you have a problem if you got a cold call from an AI bot? You weren't aware it was AI. You took the appointment and later you found out it was an AI bot. Most of them say no. So the hang up is me, right? So it's interesting. So that, I think it's going to be a learning curve for everybody, and I think that's what makes it fun is we're trying to figure out what we want to do. And that's the autonomy, right? That's the ability we have as owners to
as
implement
independence.
how we want to do it. So that's what's exciting about it. But
Yeah. And I think the independent model, and you typify it, and I commend you on all your success, is I've got an opinion, I got a viewpoint, and I've got a skill set, and it can deliver value to you. And it's delivered in the form of a relationship. You obviously care about your client, expertise and knowledge base. You obviously understand your products. And then it's about creating value. And that value could be pricing, that value could be coverage, it could be service, whatever it is. That is what makes us unique as independent agents. And I think it's a thing that nobody has. I've yet to see a mascot. I've yet to see Flo. I've yet to see Jake from State Farm be able to do what independents do. And so if AI is coming for that, then let it be the last thing that it tears down in this industry, is that, because I think that is truly the beating heart of the independent channel.
100%. I mean, if I could say it again, I think at the end of the day, I was just thinking about, I mean, going back to what I just said, I think at the end of the day is I want to scale with people because I really get personally and selfishly a lot of value by helping improve their life, giving them a good salary, giving them bonuses, allowing them to have a lifestyle and take care of their family. So if I'm just growing the revenue and growing my client base, to me, that is a dead end. It will not motivate me. And I know that might be counterintuitive for a lot of folks. Yes, I want to make more money, but I want to make more money by helping more clients, but also helping to build a culture and a team that is offering something, in my opinion, different and better than other folks. So I get excited by building the team, and it's kind of addictive, when someone looks at you and they believe in you and they're like, yeah, I'm coming on board, it's like now I need to do everything I can to enhance their life, right? Is it training? Is it PTO when their kid gets sick? Is it, hey, it's just being flexible and helping people, and that's the most satisfying part about it. I do really enjoy the clients, don't get me wrong, but I have literally pivoted back to like I enjoy more building the team.
Well, that's not the intention of this podcast, but this one was good for my soul. So, if nothing else, you reminded me that there's humanity left in this world. So I appreciate it. Andrew, I appreciate you taking the time. Um, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach out? Social, what's the best way to get you?
Um, my email, Andrew at ACOinsurance.com. Website's ACOinsurance.com.
Okay. We get lots of agents reach out and say, hey, how do I get a hold of them? And then a lot of carriers reach out and say, hey, that's the kind of agency I want to talk to. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you making the
Thanks,
time.
man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
See you soon.